It's live. Here we are, folks. Aloha all to this Monday Facebook Live. And I am John Souza, the president of HIAMFT. I'm joined by Danni Gardner, the East Hawaii chapter rep, and none other than Dr. Diane Gehart. Wow, Diane, aloha.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I am in California this morning.
And it looks beautiful over there, although you've got your sweater on, so it must be a little chilly.
It is. It is. That is why Hawaii is a permanent destination for me. It's 65, but I'm outside.
You're outside. That's right. So you're actually moving to the islands at some point.
Yep,
You're an
absolutely.
official member of HIAMFT. Thank you for
I'm an
being here.
officially licensed Hawaii MFT number 722. Thank you very much.
Um,
Congratulations on your
Thank you.
license.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Um, and then you're doing all kinds of other things. Before we go into some of this other stuff, I just want to give you a chance to brag on, and I want to brag on you because it's amazing what you're doing. I've had a chance to get into your course, Therapy That Works. Wow. You want to say something about that?
Absolutely. I mean, many people know me through my textbooks and my other professional books. And I'm actually one of the only people who've written both a counseling theory textbook and a family therapy theory textbook, which means I've gone in depth with like 40, 50 theories. And I realized that over the years, I was like filtering all of these theories in this template in my head. And and so during the pandemic, when I really learned how to use Zoom and all this stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I could actually teach the world how I do therapy. And so that is what this Therapy That Works. I'm just loving it. It's really a framework more than a theory. I just teach people how to do the work well and try to take up all of the theoretical language, but like synthesize like all of those 40, 50 major theories into just one system of doing this work in a really simple way. I use a mixed simulated reality to do training with clients in real time. It is so much fun. So it is my new kind of passion project that I've been working on.
Wow. It's beautiful. Let me just give folks who are watching this the thumbs up on this thing. I've had a chance to check under the hood, and it is just, it's amazing because it's classic Gayheart presentation, right? You've got just really nice slides, and Diane, you do a great job of narrating and providing all kinds of factoids and really helpful ways of synthesizing the information. And then we've been working a little bit on those quizzes, and going through those, have been learning so much. Like we just did
I
the
love
module
it.
3 one about personality disorders. Like, oh, this is great stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's everything. It's all of my tricks kind of put into one system. And it's got the theory, it's got all the evidence informed treatment planning, like super, super simple. And it's my passion project. I just love it, and we're having a great time. So thank you, thank you. And then my students actually taught me how to use Canva, which is royalty free like photos if you do the $12 a month. And boy, God, that's so much
Game
fun to just
changer.
make it pretty. It's game changer. The slides are so pretty. I just love my pretty slides. So
I love
on
my
a side
Canva
note.
subscription. You know, Diane, I'll also share with you that I've been teaching theories for a while, and we used to use, I mean, this is years ago. I don't remember when it was that you first published your first edition, but I know it because we were using the Nichols and Schwartz book, and I got a hold of a copy of your first draft, and I said, we need to start using this textbook. And lo and behold, here we are years later, I don't know, 10 or so years later, and everyone's using your textbook now. It's a great book.
Thank you,
Truly.
thank you. And I just got permission to do the fourth edition. So I'm really excited because it's been almost 10 years. So it is, I literally spent the weekend reorganizing my bookshelves. And it's just funny how I literally have, I don't know, I have several thousand books in a bookshelf, but it's like how the literature and evidence have shifted. I had to literally create space on my bookshelves because I'm old school. I like to hold my books.
Yes.
So I am just so excited. I'm like literally gearing up the library for the next edition. It's so much fun.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll all be waiting with bated breath for that. Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, hey, this is a nice segue. Speaking of rearranging things and evidence and how things have shifted, we're in the process right now in Hawaii in shifting some licensing laws. And that was something I really wanted to let our readers, our listeners, and viewers know about because you submitted some fantastic testimony on this licensing bill that is going through the legislative process right now. And I just wanted to read back some of those talking points to you, and then maybe you could just share some of your thoughts about where that came from.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The licensing bill, and um, I'm drawing a blank right now what it is, SB 2829 is the
Excellent.
licensing bill. That's the associate level licensing bill. Basically, what this bill proposes to do is to create something that 23 other states already have for MFTs, which is an LAMFT, a licensed associate marriage and family therapist, or some variation thereof.
Hmm.
And what that does is allows for, we'll call them a dependently licensed person, an LAMFT, meaning they can't practice independently. They have to be connected to a licensed professional, an LMFT.
Hmm.
They would then be able to bill for their services through that licensed professional's credential with an insurance company. And that allows for improved access to care, uh, improved clinical training opportunities, and it allows for both the supervisee and the supervisor to be able to earn a living while improving the quality and the training of our mental health workforce.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great bill. I'm real excited to see this.
So here is one excerpt from your testimony, Diane. You said a dependent license is the most efficient means of meeting the state's mental health needs. And you know there's a huge shortage of mental health providers across the country.
Oh yeah, it was bad before the pandemic. And after the pandemic, we are we're desperate, man. Absolutely.
For sure, for sure. I heard numbers pre-pandemic around 10,000 full-time equivalents.
Wow.
That was from the Department of Labor, I believe, that they were projecting
The,
some pretty serious shortages. Yeah.
and that's at the national level, right?
The national level, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then if you look at Hawaii specifically, I know here on Big Island we have some kind of a ratio of like 320 clients for every one therapist. And it's even worse on places like Maui and Oahu, where it's something like
Really?
500 to 1.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's only going to get worse. And the we haven't even begun, I think, to really see the long-term psychological fallout from the pandemic.
Mhm.
Sadly, it's going to be something in mental health. We're going to be dealing with it for years. It is not going away as a mental health issue.
Yeah, I agree. And Danny, feel free to offer any thoughts that you might have on this because I know you've got tremendous insight. Uh, yep. Here's another excerpt. As licensed practitioners leave panels, lower and middle income families typically have significantly reduced access to care, further exacerbating existing inequities. That was a really thought provoking point to me because I hadn't even thought about people actually leaving panels and
Oh
not
yeah.
taking insurance anymore.
Oh, they are in LA. It is happening in droves. Almost everyone is, all of my licensed colleagues, and we're seeing this in California. And we're not doing what you're proposing in Hawaii, which I think is inevitable. It's inevitable because right now, that's my 125-pound white German Shepherd. Just there's a critter on the other side of the wall. Yeah, my own dire wolf. Um, but for $49 a month, you can put an ad on Psychology Today. Now, all of us are doing telehealth across our entire state. So our pool of potential clients has gotten huge. And you can almost set any fee you want. I know associates who are charging $175 per hour under a license right now in private practice, cash, no insurance. And their practices are full. So my licensed friends who were on panels all left over the last 2 years. Most of them don't even have a physical space. So you can charge more and you don't need rent to pay rent. And it's like $49 a month to advertise. It's like that
Wow.
Zoom and, your online medical records. And it is uh, incredibly more lucrative than before the pandemic. And so why would you stay on an insurance panel that's going to pay you $68 per hour? It just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
And if we're experiencing it here, and you have fewer clinicians, I think, per person, because LA has, prior to the pandemic, we really had more therapists than we needed for our population, because everyone wants to be a therapist. When you fail in Hollywood, they all come to my program at Cal State Northridge. So a lot of, actors are actually very empathetic. They get into, and so they have that skill. And so therapy is another career. So yeah, I think it's going to be increasingly the way, because insurance companies are stressful to work for. They are, it's not fun. It's like you're begging for every cent. They're going to like audit your files. And who wants to do that? I mean, I even left insurance panels years ago because I'm like, I'll take less money and not have anyone nag me. So I think it makes, I think going forward, not just in Hawaii, but everywhere, it's going to make a lot of sense for associates to be on those panels to fill them. Because otherwise, and the average family can't even afford it. I can't afford to pay my own fee on a weekly basis. So you really, it's a problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That really surprised me when I read that bullet point. Gosh. Um, and then this is another good one, and this is again just classic Gehart right here, just laying down the law of data. There
I
is
don't,
little scientific evidence that post-degree licensure significantly increases a clinician's effectiveness.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of scary, and my colleague Ben Caldwell is even more extreme than me on this point. So I mean, basically after that first year of training, and you've figured out up from down, what to say, what not to say, how to basically run a session, and move people through a treatment plan. I mean, I still believe that we need to have the supervision, process. And I still think there's a point to licensure exams, but there's no evidence to show that that exists. That is like just tradition. That is just how we have, the hoops that we've created to have the public have faith in us, for insurance companies and taxpayers to have faith in us. But there's no research or evidence that licensure makes, is a mark of like competency. It is just kind of theoretically out there. And also just like time, how long do you need to train? How much supervision do you need? They're really, after your first 500 hours or so of practice, and then there's not like this huge increase. And at least the research methods we have right now cannot detect a difference. It's possible in the future with different research methods, we might be able to. But there is a lot of research that shows some people are just like 15% of us are just better than others from the beginning across their careers. And so, I mean, that is where, which tells us something really interesting, because there are a certain high level of skill set that very few of us actually end up developing. That's why I have my Therapy That Works course. So just assuming that training and licensure, exams and supervision are somehow going to make us better. There isn't research. It's logical. It makes sense, but there's no research that actually says that, especially after the first year. The research methods we have cannot detect a huge difference in outcome. And in fact, some people are just better from the beginning to the end of their career, which I think is the more interesting research to look at.
Isn't it though? Yeah, that reminds me of your conversation with Bill O'Hanlon a few weeks ago,
Yes. Yeah.
talking about those therapeutic abilities.
Yep.
Wow. And something that stuck with me from that conversation was that there's a study or a few studies that indicate that graduate school can actually reduce some of the therapeutic abilities that people bring into a program, and then it might take them up to 5 years to recover those abilities. So I don't
Yeah, I
know.
think that was some study Bill was citing, which I was not as familiar with. But
I
yeah, it's
was, yeah.
pretty stunning because it is this human connection that we know is so important. And yes, like, and that's why with my method, I really say we have to make these concepts simple and easy to use in session, because we need to make sure you keep that human, really human connection. Like, that's the focus. And you got to quickly, you only have a few brain cells left to like draw from theory or research. So we have to make that very simple, what you're drawing from and thinking about in session. So that's also what I think is, and that goes exactly to what Bill was saying, is that we have made doing this work way too complex.
Right.
So, so I think there's no, I cannot think of a really good reason for not having associates, because they've gone through grad school, they've jumped through that set of hoops, right? They've gotten at least usually, 9 months a year of training, if not more, behind them. And then, as an associate, they're not going to learn that much. It's not going to be dramatically different in that year with, especially if they're under supervision. Because in some ways, even having that supervision keeps them more ethical. And there's research, the longer that you practice independently, the less ethical you tend to be. It's true, especially the more isolated you are. So
Interesting.
yeah, if you want, the most ethical therapists are usually the ones in graduate school who are like, every child abuse, everything, they talk to someone. And that's, associates are going to be doing that too. They're bouncing it off of someone. They're going to be more ethical, sad to say. So yeah, I think there's just so many important reasons to allow associates to be reimbursed by insurance.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking about the mutual influence that that could have on the supervisor then. If they're trying to, if they're seeing their supervisee, the licensed associate, behaving more ethically, then they'll probably say, oh, I better tighten this up a little bit too.
Absolutely. Well, I do a lot of work even around imposter syndrome, and supervisors get imposter syndrome because their trainees and supervisees are coming in talking about theories they've never heard of, right? And so there is something that it's important for the different generations of clinicians to be in touch, because we all have different pieces of the puzzle. So, and different, newer knowledge coming through with the grad students. It's
Exactly.
it's a very hard discipline to stay current in.
Right. Yeah. It's always something new coming out, and not always enough data to support it, but we like new and interesting and something that'll be, better, which is
Yep.
ultimately what it's about. The better being that we're helping our clients, that
Yep.
we're helping them find resolution to whatever they're coming in with, and that is what I would love to, as we sort of near the end of our talk this morning, is just to kind of ask you to pontificate on how could this licensing bill ultimately help our clients? What would be the benefits to the public? How could this protect the public welfare?
Well, absolutely. But, it's going to make mental health more accessible. And there's already so much stigma around for a lot of people, especially certain cultural groups. There's a lot of stigma of going to see a mental health provider. And the more barriers we can remove, the better, and especially because of, Hawaii's just physical, geographic, you've got lots of different islands. People, it's harder to even get someplace when you want to get help, and you're limited to who's typically, I would say, on your own. Now we have telehealth. You can do it that way. Not everyone likes telehealth. And so having as many, and to have in-network providers, because financially, I mean, my God, living in Hawaii is so expensive, and it's only getting more, everything with inflation. We got the Ukraine war going at the time of this filming of this, and gas prices. It is so expensive. And so having in-network providers is vital. It is vital. And even in Los Angeles, where we've been saturated. Our market has been saturated. You still couldn't even get onto panels. And so starting off associates, it's going in a network and in insurance, there are more regulations. They have to do more treatment planning. There is, people are going to audit their files, and they're getting supervision. And then people, are having, clients now have access to just a wider number of professionals. And that is so important when you're serving a diverse population like Hawaii. That's particularly important. And to have as many options as possible that are as affordable as possible, because if this doesn't pass, it's really going to hurt low and even middle and even upper middle income families, because a lot of families, even if they're making decent money, to suddenly shell out $200 an hour, 4 times a week. How many of us can do that? Really, most therapists couldn't afford that.
Right.
And so, so I just am so thrilled to see that Hawaii is doing this, and the citizens are really, and the clients are going to benefit by having access. And I will just add, in particular, because MFTs are systemic, and so many of the diverse populations, the cultural groups in Hawaii, which is so diverse, are very communal cultures, that this systemic piece is a good fit for many of the clients in Hawaii. And I think there's a lot of value that, and the postmodern tradition also is appropriate for very diverse populations. So I think it's a win-win-win.
That's a beautiful note to end on, Diane. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time this morning. And Danni Gardner, thank you also for being here. And thanks for Danni, for being a student. I often tell people it's people like Danni that we're doing this for, in addition to our clients, is these professionals who are coming up through the ranks. We want to provide them with, like you said, Diane, as few barriers to entering the field as possible, while also maintaining that sense of integrity, to ethical standards and the clinical training quality. Not to mention the number of sites that you can choose from. So you're
Yeah.
not having to enter into a site that you'll get experience, kind of, maybe with the population you want to work with. Maybe you'll get to do some therapy, but it might look a little bit more like case management or substance abuse counseling. So that when you get independently licensed, you end up realizing that, geez, I really should have gotten some better training before I got licensed. It's problematic, and I do think this bill can really help correct a lot of things very quickly. Um, so on that note, we'll wrap up for today. Mahalo to all who watch this. Diane, where can people find out more about you and your Therapy That Works Institute training?
Yeah. You can just go to therapythatworksinstitute.com or dianegehart.com. And I do have free CEs that you can sign up for as well. So check it out. And
Perfect. Well, all right. On that note, we'll say a hui ho to all until next Monday. Diane, stay warm, and have a great rest of your day.
thank you. Mahalo.
Oh, you're
And best
welcome.
of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha.